Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Great Black Speakers Podcast, where we connect through conversation. I am your host, Lawrence Watkins. I am the founder and CEO of Great Black Speakers Bureau. I'm also the president and chief operating officer of the Black Business School. So today we have a very special guest. We are here with Ms. Stacy Davidson. Stacy is the director of career development and lead integrative coach at Dominican University of California.
Mhm.
And today we're talking about how to understand yourself and others to make you a better leader, both at work and at home. So, Stacy, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, and I love that intro. I love being a better person at work and at home. So thank you,
Oh,
Lawrence, for the opportunity.
well, it's my pleasure. So, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you've gotten to this point in your career?
Yes. So I am originally from Newport News, Virginia. I'm a first generation college graduate, attended University of Virginia, got a degree in psychology, and then got a master's degree in college student personnel from Bowling Green State University. And that sounds really simple and really linear, but it was actually very circular because I really didn't know what I wanted to do after college with my psych degree. And so I came out to California to find myself. So I've been on I really relate to people who aren't like very purposeful. I know exactly what I'm going to do next. Like my college roommate who always wanted to be a doctor, and now she's a doctor. I wasn't that person. So I spent a couple of years out here in California, where I am now, trying to figure things out, and went back to grad school. Discovered college student personnel. Didn't know that was an option for me in terms of a master's degree or a career. And I've been in higher ed for over 30 years, working with college students in a variety of areas, whether it's diversity and inclusion work, career development, which I'm doing now, residence life, housing, student activities, adult and continuing education. So just the gamut of student affairs work. And that's my passion, is working with college students on college campuses.
Got it. So, let's talk about how you leveraged your personality, I guess, for your career. So, you stated that you weren't the direct path individual like your roommate. So, talk about your path a little bit more in regards to the twists and turns that you had to go through to get to where you are now.
Great, great. That's a great question. Um, it's interesting. Sometimes we don't connect. And this is what I love. I just did a workshop yesterday for some of my former students from my previous university around 6 steps to finding your career passion. And sometimes we don't connect what we've done as a child or in high school or in college with possible careers, right? And so one of the things I love about that article is finding your yes and your no compass. Like, what are things that you say yes to, and what are things that you say no to? And so, in my work when I came out here to California, I was literally waiting tables, doing temp jobs. I was a secretary at a coffee company in San Francisco, and one of my no's was, I don't want to work for a company where my job is to just make their bottom line better. Like, I'm not interested in corporate work. So then I knew that just eliminated a whole swath of the work industries. Like, corporate America is not my thing. But I never really leveraged or understood being an RA in college, or being a head resident in college, or being in orientation, or pledging my sorority and doing service work had anything to do with a career. But then when I found college student personnel, I was like, oh, I've been doing this my whole life. And then I made that connection, found that program, and then also knowing and realizing that it's important for me to lead. It's important for me to create programs. It's important for me to do things that are rewarding and that I'm making a difference and having an impact in other people's lives. And so when I thought about and had that 2020, oh, all of that was there. I just didn't make sense of it as connecting it to a career path. But I knew that I didn't want to do work that's like, oh, I'm working for a business and they're going to make more money because of the work. No, I don't want to do that. I want to change lives, impact people, and make a difference. So that was my number one thing, and that's what I've been able to do in higher ed, working with college students.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'm just taking notes over here. So, Let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's go a little bit deeper into
Hmm.
you didn't make that connection, right? Because I think a lot of people don't really make those connections as well. And I think there's a lot of pressure on, 18 to 22-year-olds to really choose right away in terms of what they're going to do for the rest of their life and their careers.
Hmm.
So, how does one, whether they're in college or maybe they're 30 or maybe they're 35 or 40,
Hmm.
who may want to choose a different path and go a different way, how do they go about making those connections in terms of what they like to do, combining that with something that can actually make them money and also personally, I guess, fulfill them at the same time?
So that's a beautiful segue, Lawrence, into the work I've done in being certified as a Myers-Briggs type indicator practitioner. So in my work with students at my previous institution in San Antonio, I was the director of academic support. So I often saw students who were coming in thinking like, I've always known I wanted to be an engineer. And then they get into engineering classes, math, chemistry, calculus, and they're like, this is not at all what I want to do. So they would come having academic struggles, and then they would realize, you know what? Just because my parents said I should do this, or just because I've always wanted to do it, doesn't mean it's right. And so they weren't really listening to what was going on the inside and tuning in to their natural, what I always like to refer to as their natural gifts and talents. What are you naturally good at? What comes easy for you? And not that you shouldn't have to work hard, or not that classes aren't going to be hard, but what is it that how do you want to spend your time? I'll give you one great example. To that point, young man came in, engineering major, wanted to be an engineer since he was fourth grade, couldn't get through chemistry, right? It was just like, and so he just was determined, no, I'm not going to give up. I was like, well, keep going. If you need more study strategies, come back and see me. By the beginning of his sophomore year, he was back again. He's like, I can't, I don't want to, I have no enjoyment. So we did a Myers-Briggs personality assessment. Came out that his Myers-Briggs type was not at all compatible with engineering. Long story short, he thought about it, reflected on it, really acknowledged, I really do love music. I really do love art. I do love to write. So he went from being an engineering major to an English major and an art minor. And so what happened then, because he was now kind of in his lane and in doing those things that, he was really, really good at and was passionate about, his grades came up, his motivation was higher, he was more enthusiastic about being in school, and it just completely changed his life because he now had more self-awareness of who he was, what he was good at, because he was trying to, not that he couldn't be in engineering, he could have done that, but his heart's desire, his passion, where he felt he was strongest, was in those areas that he really hadn't been paying any attention to. So that's what Myers-Briggs does, is it allows you to access and understand self better. So you're like, oh, that's why I do the things I do. That's why I gravitate in this direction. And that has meaning for me and has value for me. And sometimes we don't pay attention to those things or honor them the way that we should in making those career choices and those decisions about how we want to spend our life and our time and our work.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, when you were speaking about, this child or this young adult making this transition from engineering to, art and English, I guess, that side of their brain,
Mm-hmm.
what came to me, I guess, was the parents. Like, I wonder what the parents did when they did that, right? So when you go off like the beaten path a little bit and when you change,
Right. And I
completely.
have an answer for that because I actually talked
Yeah.
to his mom. So, because he was on what we call the DFW list. So he has lots of D's and he had lots of
Mm.
F's around midterm time. So we would check in with the family. And and he gave me permission to do that. And when I talked to her, the mom, she was like, we've never thought he should be an engineer, right?
Mhm.
We just didn't think that was his thing. But because he had he could do graphic arts and had like this, his brain could like see things three-dimensionally because he was a great artist. And so he just connected that to engineering and not necessarily to just art and expression. And so when they switched, they were very happy. Now, then I had a young woman who was and she had a great deal of pressure from her family. And she was in the end of her sophomore year wanting to switch, and a great deal of pressure from family. Again, because we talked earlier, how much money you're going to make, how much job security you're going to have, because that's really what's on the minds of parents of millennials and Gen Zs is the financial security, right? How are you going to take care of yourself? And she ended up switching, found out it really wasn't a good fit, did the Myers-Briggs, and she switched to business analytics. So again, she could secure a really good paying job, use some of the similar kinds of analytical problem solving skills that she used in engineering, but had greater satisfaction in the work and what it meant and what she was going to do long term. So yeah, you can have both. Yes, we knew all along that that's not.
Yeah.
Or no, you have to do this, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But students do feel a lot of pressure, or people feel a lot of pressure from what externally is defined as success, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then you tend to go with that and tend to be really, really unhappy.
Yeah, like I guess it's that, personal happiness component. And I think the sooner that you are able to find out what it is that you like, because you just mentioned with your first example where his parents kind of knew that engineering wasn't his path, but he thought that since he could see things in a three-dimensional type of way, that the engineering was the only path. So
Mm-hmm.
that leads me to a question in regards to, I guess, optionality and options in terms of exploring your different options when you're younger. So
Mm-hmm.
do you have any advice around that for parents of teenagers or even themselves? How do you go about exploring those options with an eighth grader or seventh grader or sixth grader to see what they may actually want to do long term?
I think, and being a parent, I think that's it's important to really pay attention to what your child is doing and how they're spending their time. And so I've known my children's Myers-Briggs type since they were both in probably high school. It's too, sixth or seventh grade is too early to be giving children Myers-Briggs, right? Because their personalities are fully developed. But around high school, it's much more salient for them. And so knowing type, before you know that, is to really pay attention to how your child spends their time and what they focus on. Because a lot of times, unfortunately, because parents are so, well, you have to have this to be successful, that external definition of success, we push our children into places where they really don't fit and that's not using their natural gifts and talents. So I would really do a lot of listening, a lot of talk, asking questions, and a lot of what I was blessed that my parents did for me and that I did for my children was getting them involved in any number of different kinds of activities so that exploration happens. Like, we can sometimes get our kids locked into athletics because you're going to be an athlete, and maybe that's not their thing. Maybe they're more interested in art and music and expression and those writing or those kinds of things. So really tuning in at a very young age, I would say even elementary school, to see kind of where what direction your children are pulled into, but still providing them with a broad array of exposure to a lot of different things, because that really is the definition of a liberal arts education, if you want to say how that translates to college, is we want you to take a broad array of different kinds of things to see what piques your interest. The average student changes their major 2 to 3 times, even when they come in clearly decided.
Yeah.
Because they get, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And you're like, student to average, because we want them exposed to different areas. And I think with children, just paying attention, getting out of your own head, getting out of their way, and letting them take you on the journey that they are on. And I'm speaking from experience, because boy, I tell you, I just wore my son out. He's 22. And I was like, no, you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. And he's like, that's not my path. Right. And so I had to pull back and allow that path to open up for him.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And, I was an engineering major. I was an electrical engineering major. And, looking back on it, I probably should have majored in either like computer science or IE. So I was kind of there, but I wasn't completely there in terms of my major. And I wish I had just, had listened to myself. And the reason I didn't choose industrial engineering instead, which is more of my speed, is because of just the like in the engineering community, they call them imaginary engineers, right? Because but it wasn't like a good term, right? It was like, you're not really an engineer, you're an imaginary engineer, that type of thing. So that's why I kind of stuck with electrical engineering. And really, I should have been in business anyway, but my parents didn't actually want me to major in business. But right after college, I decided to start my own business, and that's when I started to diverge, on my own path, then and there. And
and people get pressure. There's a lot of pressure because we as parents make a big mistake. I'm looking at myself. of deciding what success looks like. And we operate, and I did this with my young Black son, out of fear. Well, no, but you have to do this because this is the only way for you to be able to do, to have these things, and not acknowledging and honoring, well, who is this person in front of me and what fits for them? What are they saying to me that I'm not listening to because I've already got the tape in my head about how I'm defining success for them.
Right. And, throughout this interview, you have mentioned, Myers-Briggs personality type indicator quite a bit. When we get back after this quick break, we're going to talk a little bit more about what is Myers-Briggs and how it can help you become a better leader at work and also at home. So just as a reminder, everyone, I'm here with Stacy Davidson. Stacy is the Director of Career Development and Lead Integrative Coach at Dominican University of California. And today we're talking about how to understand yourself and others to make you a better leader at work and at home. So if you guys like what Stacy has talked about in the first segment in regards to your kids and understanding them to help them, get on the right track and the right path, to a better life that they're going to be, personally fulfilled by, please go ahead and press the thumbs up button. Please make sure that you share this video with friends and family as well. And also subscribe to the Black Financial channel if you'd like to receive more Black financial content like the content that we're producing here today with Stacy. All right, Stacy, let's talk a little bit about Myers-Briggs. So can you talk about, what is the Myers-Briggs type indicator and how it's used?
I'm going to pull out my cheat sheet here because I want to do it justice. Okay. So I have my little catalog here. And so Myers-Briggs is an assessment that was developed by Isabel Briggs Myers and her mother. And it's based on Carl Jung's psychology. So Carl Jung was a psychologist, and it is a self-report questionnaire designed to make Carl Jung's theory of personality type understandable and useful in everyday life. The MBTI results identify valuable differences that can be the source of much misunderstanding and miscommunication. It helps you to receive feedback about your own unique gifts and how you operate in the world, which means then the more you understand about yourself, the more you can then navigate and understand and appreciate the differences of other people. It also helps you appreciate people who are different from you, as I just said. Understanding your Myers-Briggs type is self-affirming and encourages cooperations with others. It has been around for decades. It has been translated into 30 languages, and it explains just basic tendencies. It's like handedness. So if I asked you to write with your right hand, like sign your name like you would sign a document with your dominant hand, you're like, okay, that's easy, Stacy, I can do that. No big deal. I don't have to think about that. Now, if I asked you to switch to your non-dominant hand and sign your name like you're signing a legal document, that would take some thought, some effort, some focus, and it wouldn't look the same. And that's what Myers-Briggs is. It talks about our preferred way of being, that Carl Jung says we are hardwired. Like there's not any way to be anything else. It doesn't mean we can't have tendencies in the other way, but we have what we call a preferred way of being. And so I'll wrap it up by saying that Myers-Briggs has been proven beneficial in a broad range of applications, some of which are self-understanding and individual development, team building, management and leadership trainings used widely in corporate America and in the medical field as well for leadership training, coaching, organizational development, diversity and multicultural training, problem solving, career development, where I use it a lot, academic counseling, education and curriculum development, and then also relationship counseling. So if you know about yourself, but then you also know about your partner or your child, then it really helps to develop greater understanding around why people do what they do and why that may get on your nerves a little, or maybe you don't understand why they do things the way they do. But if you understand type, like as a leader on my team, if I know everyone's Myers-Briggs type, I can hear them talking and hear them and I guess I see how she's processing or how she came to that conclusion and why she does things the way that she does. So it doesn't become this, oh, why does so-and-so do that? You understand that. And so it allows you to really build bridges and develop effective communication.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, no, that was a very good summation in terms of what it is, and you're right, it is used all over the place in terms of academia and corporate America,
Hmm.
at home, just so many different places. Can you talk about, so there, I guess, it's a subset of people that also think that Myers-Briggs is some type of voodoo, right? And it doesn't really have any, not voodoo, but it doesn't have any credence to one's life. It's like, doing a horoscope. That's what that's what people think. So
Oh,
what,
yeah.
yeah, so what would you say to, someone like that, or someone who will say it's not as accurate as other tests, like, the big five personality indicators, like that type of stuff?
Hmm.
So what would you say to someone who kind of discredits the use of, like, I guess, this tool, versus others, and say it has really no validity?
Yeah. And so I'm glad you ended with validity, because as a psych major and someone who, did 40 hours of training on this stuff, they often say you're going to go into workshops and people will be skeptical. And so when you look at assessments or any kind of psychometric testing, you have to have validity. And so Myers-Briggs has been validated over decades, and it has consistent results. People take their assessments and they're consistent across time. They tend not to change. And so if you ask that question about validity, it has been psychologically tested and verified. I don't even know how many decades it's been. It's been around since the 1940s and 50s. And so um, I would say that it has been validated through very rigorous testing. And if you look over time, it's consistent in terms of results. In my own personal experience, so that's the big picture. In my own personal experience, in giving Myers-Briggs assessments to students, this is my primary population, I have not, in the 30 years I've been doing this work, no one has ever come back to me and said that has absolutely no validity and doesn't describe me at all. What I have found with students is when they take the assessment, they're just like, so how do they know exactly who I am? And it explains so much in helping them to understand themselves. And I do it so that students can know more about themselves and understand themselves, not just in their academic and career paths, but it also turns into discussions around, well, that explains how I am in my relationships with my friends or my family, or this is why I have such a hard time getting my mom, for example, to understand me, is because she doesn't, you know what I mean? So those, they come into real much more deep and rich conversations. And so I would just say, one, from personal experience, I've never had someone say this is completely inaccurate. And two, just I can't think of the name of that company that administers Myers-Briggs, but they've been very diligent about the running valid tests on it to make sure that it is accurate.
Got you. Yeah, so I am an INTJ, so that's someone who are kind of the quiet assholes in the group, I guess. I don't know.
No, no,
Yeah.
don't.
The
I'm not going to
skeptical
let you
quiet
say that about
assholes.
yourself, Lawrence.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. But
INTJ, so my daughter, so you all are, so to the point, you're very rare in the population. My daughter is an INTP, which is even more. She's like, if I could just find another Black woman who's an INTP, it would make, first, her first goal was to find another Black woman named Taylor. Now, then her second goal was to find another Black woman who was an INTP, because you all are very logical and methodical. You're not oozing with like feeling and emotion, but the brain power that you have is out of this world, because you can process data and information and problem solve and see all the possibilities that exist in the universe and come up with a conclusion like no one else. So that makes you seem like that, because you don't lead with all of this feeling and emotion, because you just facts, right? But that is a gift. But all of that, so with Myers-Briggs, we look at these things as everything is a gift, right? But then
and
we
also curse.
also, but then if you say to yourself, people think I'm this guy, then you make that shift, right? Away from your preferred way, your natural way, and say, you know what? Maybe I need to move a little bit over here to the middle, to access that piece of me that isn't my first choice. It doesn't come naturally to me, but I know it impacts other people in a way that I don't like. So I'll make a shift a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm an ISTJ. So I am just the facts, execute the plan, make the plan happen. If somebody messes with my plan, I am hot, angry, and I mean now, because I take a lot of time in executing my plan. So what I know that I'm not, what I am is rigid, and what I'm not is spontaneous. So I have to really work on going with the flow and letting things just happen, which, because that's not the way I naturally do things. And I have two children who are just like, whoa, let's just go with it. And I'm like, no, there's a deadline, there's a plan, execute the plan. But they appreciate that in me because they don't naturally do it for themselves. They're like, oh no, mom, you need to schedule us, you need to plan it, you need to make it happen.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to do it, right? And so we've learned how to appreciate the gifts and not see them as an irritant. Because if they don't know that about me, then I'm driving them nuts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And, I mean, I guess it's the first step in terms of, understanding, like, let's say, like Myers-Briggs, right? It's really just deeper self of not, or deeper knowledge of self, right?
Yes.
But my next question, I guess, is after that, what happens? How do you translate that into becoming a better leader, and I guess working with others, and knowing, I guess, your faults and what you're good at, and how do you go about, I guess, taking that knowledge and actually making it actionable to have a better impact in your life and the people around you?
Yeah, I love that. That's a great question. And so when you have when you have more self-awareness, it takes more, and means you have more responsibility for knowing yourself and your natural tendencies, right? And utilizing those for the greater good of the team or the organization. So if there's some plan so for me, I know if you give me something on paper and say, Stacy, here's this program or thing we think we want to do, can you operationalize that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, because I can get from point A to point and with mad efficiency, right? But what I know that I tend not to do, Lawrence, because I am so quick to just move things along and I'm really into the details. So that's self-awareness. But what I know about myself is that I'm not big picture. Drives me crazy. I'm not like, well, let's look at all of the options like you do. Your in is like, no, what are all the possibilities? And so as a leader or as a manager, I have to now sit back and make sure I've taken time to hear from my team and not be so quick to come to a decision, because then people feel like they're not heard. Right. And so once you know those things about, and I can't say for every single type, but the more you know about what you naturally do, you have to be aware of what you would not naturally do and do that as well. Because otherwise you're just an autocrat. You're just my way or the highway. I'm doing it this way. And if you all don't get on board, then that's not my problem. That's not leadership. Right. And so knowing what I would naturally do, and then saying, let me sit back and think about what can I do and what can I bring that's not my natural way that benefits the overall team and meets the needs of different. Because my N's in the room, I'm going to ask N, it means someone that wants to process and think through things. I need to sit back and allow them the time to do that. So if I know who my people are and what their types are, and if Lawrence keeps talking and I'm already made a decision, but Lawrence still needs to talk through it, I can't cut Lawrence off and say, Lawrence, we've already made a decision. Because then he's like, you're not interested in my ideas. I have great ideas. Right?
Right.
Does that make sense? So knowing your type and not just going with your natural way, but being aware of how I need to pull myself a little bit more towards what other types are, the opposite of my type.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And that's what I struggle with too. And I had to kind of get over, with myself is, INTJs at some point, we never think we're wrong because we've done so much research on a particular subject, and I've kind of had a help.
You are subject matter experts and everything.
Yeah. And I've done a lot of research on, Myers-Briggs and the Big Five, probably more than pretty much anybody that I know of.
Right.
Right. And it's like, all right, let's talk about this, let's talk about that. And it's for something that's of a deep knowledge base of myself, it's difficult not to insert my opinions when I'm supposed to be interviewing you as the expert, the actual true expert on this particular subject as
Right,
well.
the one who has the certification, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the one who has the certifications, that type of thing, as
Right,
well, right?
right.
And I think, when at work, like, how does this lead to, I guess, better outcomes as well in terms of, I guess, call it career promotions, and just, job success, or if you have your own business, in terms of like team dynamics. So we talked about, what, what's the next step in terms of, how you can use Myers-Briggs or whatever in your life. But, let's talk about the outcomes in terms of, what happens if you're able to get like a team to, function, perform better, using tools like this.
And so what it does is when people, I think if you just want to put Myers-Briggs off to the side for a second, I think with effective teams, if people feel that they're heard, that their opinion is valued, that their expertise is acknowledged, and that even if the decision isn't what Lawrence said I want to do, if everyone on the team feels as though they're heard and they come to consensus, because not every decision that you make is going to go your way. But I think leading from a place of, and this is just nothing more than diversity and inclusion conversation as well. Are all voices at the table being heard? Are all perspectives being utilized? Am I tapping into Lawrence's ability to really research and drill down and go down that rabbit hole and stay there until he knows everything he needs to know and come back? Am I assigning that task to someone to whom that's not their natural ability? Or am I aware of Lawrence's talents as a leader and as a manager, where you walk away with an assignment that you're like, Stacy really knows me, she gets me, I'm going to go do this, and this is going to be my contribution to the team. And so that's how you build effective teams. And when corporations or businesses see leaders building effective teams, and then people are saying, wow, I work for Stacy and she really hears me and she sees me, and this thing is real, we are firing on all cylinders because everyone's voice is at the table, then that leads to promotion and career advancement, because you are effectively working with people. And I think we've all can say we've worked with people who are just like, my way, the highway, this is the way it's done, doesn't appreciate differences, doesn't appreciate style, doesn't appreciate cultural nuances of what people bring culturally as well. So I think that piece really, Myers-Briggs really speaks to all voices, all styles being valued, right? And so for me, as an introvert who's often energy is read as an extrovert, I know that when my staff comes into my office, right, to be an effective leader, and I'm working on something, and they come in, and I perceive that as an interruption, because that's not on my schedule. So I have to be aware that the way that I code that is going to come across in my face and in my engagement with them. And that's something, Lawrence, that was so hard for me, that if I'm like, got deadline, I'm working on this, and someone just walks in my office, my face is like,
yeah.
And they're just like, okay, never mind, And so that's where that self-development and awareness makes you more effective in leading and engaging with other people, which then leads itself to promotion and advancement and moving up in your company or organization. It's just like a blind spot, right? Because with your Myers-Briggs, those blind spots are those pieces you got to pay more attention to, because you're going to go in the direction you're going to go. It's the blind spots that you have to work on and be aware of, that I can't just be in here like, okay, I've made my decision, let's go. That's not effective, even though that's the way I would naturally want to do it.
Right. No, that's deep, and that's great. I think that's true about, understanding your blind spots as well, because that would upset me too. And I actually had to create a system around people not interrupting me, on certain days. Right. So, I have now, I increased the number of regular team meetings that people have direct access to me to ask me questions and that type of stuff. And other than that, though, I don't get on the phone or anything like that. They'll have to send me, a message, via chat. And at certain times of the day, that type of stuff as well. And it's worked for everyone involved. And, we all, really appreciate it, because we have grown to understand in terms of how we work well with each other. over
Yes.
time. So yeah. So that
Yeah.
makes
So that's your
perfect sense to
I.
me.
Yeah. That's your I too, right? Because us
Hmm.
introvert types are like quiet, time, focused. And your J, when you put all that
Hmm.
together, you are just like focus, 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 right? And
Yep.
so, but if you have a team of people that are you're leading, then you're like, okay, so how can I operate in an environment that works for me, but also is responsive to what my team needs? And that's effective leadership, right? You
Hmm.
can't just sit in there and be like, well, I'm going to be this person, and they just have to get on board and figure it out and adjust to me. That's not effective leadership or being an effective team member. We all have to make those adjustments and be more fluid. I know I'm rigid. My children tell me, like, Mom, really? Come on, seriously. So I
Hmm.
know that that's a goal of mine, is to just be like, let's be more open and spontaneous. Yeah.
Right. No, I love it. I love it. And for people who are watching, we're thinking about doing a course on, understanding of self in Myers-Briggs and leadership, that type of thing. So if you'd like to see that in the Black Business School, please make sure that you comment or leave a comment below this video. And Stacy, if people want to know a little bit more about, what is it you do, or have questions about Myers-Briggs or how you may be able to help, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I told Lawrence earlier that I am working on a website, and it's ready to go. I'm just waiting on some video to support it. But after this session, I'm going to upload and make public my website. It's called Stacy Davidson's phenomenalwill.net. And so please, reach out to me. There's a contact form in there if you'd like some more information. Otherwise, you can also reach me at sdavidson384@gmail.com. I'm happy to do Myers-Briggs assessments and talk with you. I am super, super passionate about it because I've seen how it is transformative. And I know my population is students, college students, but it works. It doesn't matter how old you are. The more you know about yourself and the more you honor that person, then the more confident you can walk through this life and this path and this journey of figuring out who you are, where you want to go, and what you want to be. And I am just so passionate about the self-awareness that Myers-Briggs provides for you, that I'm willing to talk with people because I've seen how it has changed young people's lives, and helping them to find their way. And that's really what I love to do, is just to help people find their way. And it's a blessing to me to be a part of that journey for people to just like walk in their truth, as they say.
Love it. I love it. And Stacy, thank you so much for your time. As a reminder, everyone, I've been speaking today with Stacy Davidson. Stacy is the Director of Career Development and Lead Integrative Coach at Dominican University of California. And today we've been talking about how to understand yourself better, or excuse me, how to understand yourself and others better to
Mm-hmm.
make you a better leader at work and at home. So Stacy, thanks so much for your time. Please make sure you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Please make sure you share and subscribe to the Black Financial channel as well. So on behalf of Stacy, my name is Lawrence Watkins. You guys take care, be blessed, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lawrence.